Also, according to Twitter, today is the 45th year anniversary of Spider-Man.
Yeah, I don't care about that. We didn't watch that.
I thought the tweet said 43rd. You're probably...
Maybe it is
I looked
43rd.
at it. I
didn't look at it. And I don't appreciate you guys talking about it.
I'm sorry. At first, I drew the One Piece thing, and I don't watch it, and that pissed you off.
Yeah,
I can't.
you get your own things. Stop just trying to fit in.
I thought, my buddy Seth will like it when I draw these One Piece characters, and then he said, fucking stop it. It's inaccurate.
I have come on a mission of gravest consequence. For I am the Watcher, member of an ancient race far older than man. But though our power is great, we are pledged only to watch, never to interfere. But now mankind faces the greatest danger it has ever known. The danger of
the Watchers of Earth. 199,999.
Welcome to the Watchers of Earth 199,999. I am your host, Andrew, and joining me as always is my co-host, Seth.
I'm not the resident Spider-Man fan.
Our third co-host, Joe, couldn't be here today because he's busy yelling at punks outside his apartment. So we were joined with our fourth co-host, Peter.
Not Parker.
Ouch. Fourth co.
You could have been fifth.
Well, yeah, now Uatu's been bumped down to our
We got
fifth
so
co-host.
much. We got so many co-hosts. Co-hosts for days. All the way
But
down.
he has sworn only to watch and never interfere.
That's why he's last. So, Pete, do you want to tell us what we watched and when it premiered and all that jazz? You want to do my job for me?
Boy, I'll tell you what you watched. Yeah. We have watched Spider-Man Homecoming, debuted in 2017, directed by John Watts and written by Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis DeLay. Synopsis of our wonderful feature film this time is Peter Parker balances his life as an ordinary high school student in Queens with his superhero alter ego, Spider-Man, and finds himself on the trail of a new menace prowling the skies of New York
They fought
City.
the Vulture, not the Prowler. Hey!
So, Pete, in a sentence or less, what did you think of Spider-Man Homecoming?
I really like this film, especially when ranking all the Spider-Man films. I mean, I'm very partial to a good high school Peter Parker when they do it right, and I kind of thought they nailed it on this one.
Seth, how did Spider-Man Homecoming hold up for you? Being the last one you've seen.
Yeah, after this I'm in no man's land. But I remember really liking this when I saw it. I saw this when it came out in theaters instead of shopping with my wife and mother-in-law. And it was good. It still held up. I still have the same problems with it. Maybe a little bit more, but that's definitely a lot of fun.
So I really liked this movie when I saw it. And this is one of the few Marvel movies I've seen more than once prior to this podcast. I've seen it, I believe, 3 times. Because I think I saw it twice in theater. And I did not like it as much this time. And I was going to do like a whole bait and switch thing, but it's not worth it with both of you guys landing positive. I still really, really like this movie. This is a solid movie, but a lot of the problems I had the first time, and even some new ones, were even bigger this time around. There were things that I was like, yeah, this worked the first time, that like when I saw the trailers and everything, there were a lot of things that I was like, I don't think I'm going to like that. And then it was better than I expected. This time, some of it I think is influenced by knowing where the series is going, but it didn't hit me as well as I wanted it to. But that said, like, it's still a very good movie.
We should have had Kirsten on because you and her would have gotten along very well, except for the part that you really liked it.
She hated it?
Yeah. But she was also drinking heavily before we watched it, and then I think she fell asleep during it. But she said it was very boring, and like you, she hates Tony Stark, and it was derivative and cliche and dumb, and she called Michael Keaton Falcon.
I mean, it's derivative in the way that it is parroting, homaging, whatever, various, like, high school movie tropes.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of John Hughes.
But as a Spider-Man movie, I don't think it's derivative. As far as other Spider-Man movies, this is the most different that they've been, which is not really a high mark.
I don't know if I agree, and to her credit, she does bring up good points. I think I just didn't care to some extent. I mean, I think it's goofy For St. Patrick's Day, I did a little doodle of Spider-Man holding together a rainbow with pot of gold at the end. And you're like, I don't get it. And I was like, Spider-Man does this in literally every movie. He holds together the train. He holds together the boat.
I get that. But the thing I didn't get was what it had to do with St. Patrick's Day.
Because he was holding the thing. It didn't have anything to do with St. Patrick's Day.
I guess that was my thing, especially since you're always someone who's like, I don't like mashup fan art because I don't understand what those two properties have to do with each other other than people like both the things. And so when you did that, I was like, he wouldn't just draw this. And I think if I knew you were just drawing it, I probably would have been fine. But I was like, there's got to be a reason that he chose Spider-Man for St. Patrick's Day. And I'm just like the stupid idiot that can't figure it out.
Because I thought it was goofy that he held them together. Like, he holds literally everything together.
I definitely made like a note. Yeah, you can make fun of me. But I did make a note on, was that kind of like them stepping up to the plate again, as, you know, the other films in both series have a scene where they're trying to hold something together as his body's being like pulled apart. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting trope.
And she also, that's our modus operandi. She also mentioned,
does the other Spider-Man movie with Andrew,
he holds together doesn't he? He holds something together, doesn't he, Pete?
I don't know. I didn't think he did.
So, Andrew Garfield...
The bridge!
See, now I'm getting blanked if... Yeah, he does the bridge, and then Tobey Maguire does the trolley cart and the wire hold, and then the most notable one is the train from Spider-Man
I remember the
2.
train one, I just didn't remember anything with Andrew Garfield doing it.
I don't remember anything of Andrew Garfield. Yeah. Hey-o. No, she also mentioned that it's kind of the same, like, Adrian Toomes is Liz's dad. In the first movie, Green Goblin is Goblin Jr.'s dad. I can't think of his name right now. Harry Osborn.
I think that's a fair observation. However, that is an intentional choice. Like, that is supposed to be a spin on the fact that Spider-Man... Because, honestly, if you look through Spider-Man's rogue gallery, 90% of them are somebody that he knows.
Well, that's what she was saying, too, where, like, he's a kid in high school. His 6 degrees of separation are fairly limited. But I think to say that this is, like, the most different and not derivative, like, she has a point, is what I'm saying.
I guess when I say this is the most different, it's because literally all the other ones are the exact same.
I'm just saying he holds things together with webs.
Sure.
If you want to do something different with Spider-Man...
He wears a suit with webs. If
you want to have him do something different with Spider-Man, have him put on a space suit and punch aliens in the face with a flamethrower.
If you want something different with Spider-Man, just wait till we get to the next one.
Something that I really do like with, you know, this film's dynamic, as, you know, you state that he has known these people, or the 6 degrees separation. With this one, he doesn't know that he knows the villain in any degree of connection until the
greatest scene in the MCU.
Opinion, one of the best. Yes, yeah, it's one of the best. Not even just the car scene itself, but when Toomes opens that door when Peter comes to pick up Liz for Homecoming, and the music stops, it is an oh shit moment the whole time.
I think,
yeah. I can't say enough good about that whole sequence of scenes.
We'll probably gush on it more later, but that's kind of my thing with when Kirsten said it was boring and derivative and a waste of her time and yada yada yada. She wasn't angry about it, but she was like, she didn't care. I can see her points.
It's something where the statement is true, and I don't disagree with the statement as a broad sequence of words. However, especially when she has, with us, taken this journey through every Marvel movie ever, they're all derivative of each other. And this one is also not just, I feel like, the most different from the other Spider-Man movies, which again is a low bar, but it's also the most different from the other Marvel movies.
I agree. And the lack of an origin helps. And she said that. But I guess to get at her, she's not on the fucking show. To get out of that, like, I think while Toomes is the dad of the tertiary character, I guess, I think it does something a lot different than Raimi's Spider-Man. And I could be biased just because I agree with Pete. I think as soon as Michael Keaton opens the door, I don't know, it hit me just as well as it did, even knowing what was going to happen, knowing what the scene is. Like, I think it's done so well.
I still find myself incredibly excited leading up to that scene, because you're like,
it's so tense.
Here it comes. But like, still the same like tension of the oh shit, like as soon as he opens the door, knowing what's coming, like with the excitement of the lead up to that scene, it's just, yeah, Michael Keaton just knocked it out of the park.
I think a lot of people do.
I think everybody is, except for the one person that I hate in every single one of these movies.
Tony Stark.
He sucks. I don't like Tony, but I really just Robert Downey Jr. I don't like the way he plays Tony. I don't like every time he's in a scene, he feels like he is in a completely different movie. Every scene that he's in drags this movie down. And when I saw the trailers the first time, I was like, oh my god, why is Stony
Tark?
Why is Tony Stark
Speaking
in
of
this
Sony
movie?
Tark, Sony makes a good movie.
And now that once I saw it, I was like, okay, he's not as much in the movie as much as I thought, and they did interesting things with it. Watching it again and also knowing where it goes later down the line, Tony Stark is the worst thing that could have happened to this movie, and every single aspect of this movie is built around him, and I hate it. I hate the tech suit, which I didn't hate the first time. I hated it this time. I hate Tony Stark being around. The only thing I don't hate about it is that the way Tomb's story intersects, but that's only Tony Stark adjacent. So
I guess with you saying all your hate, should we do the
that's at the end. I thought you listened to
that's
our
at
show.
the end.
Oh well, fine.
No,
Andrew, leave that
so we
in.
can get into. I'll play it over and over again so you can know how stupid he
Just
sounds.
in the background, just throughout.
Should we do the two put ups and a put down, or should we do the two put ups and a put down? Or...
Let's jump in, but let me touch on the Tony Stark thing, and if Pete wants to say something here, he can too. When he first shows up, I was thinking about you, Andrew.
Oh, that's sweet.
Touching.
Knowing how
That's
much
so sweet.
you hated this movie right at that moment. And I don't know if it was because of that or whatever, but I was like,
Rooting for him just to spite me.
I was like, okay, Tony, get out of here. I don't think I had a problem with it. I think it's maybe a little much, but I don't know if it necessarily got in the way for me.
So we open up with Adrian Toombs and his crew of
Toomies.
construction workers cleaning up after the attack
Chiclets.
in New York, which was 8 years ago, which is
it picks up with that scene directly after the Avengers New York. Battle.
It's weird, and I know like it kind of goes with my whole like the Marvel timeline sucks, and that's one thing I don't care about for the shared universe is that
They have to like retroactively fit things in.
it's not that everything needs to take place like that doesn't need an event every year, but it's also just like nothing happens in this universe except for like big events, which is another thing that makes this movie so interesting is because it's so small in the larger scheme of things.
But rooted from a big event, yeah.
The fact that it was 8 years ago just seems strange to me. It's the appropriate amount of time, especially real time with the actors and when these movies came out and everything. But it feels like a very long amount of time for basically the only thing to have really happened in this universe. I mean, I guess Thor's thing happened on Earth and it was a big old hullabaloo in
Segovia.
the Dark World, but it just, I don't know. I don't have a point. It's just something that bothers me. Like, I don't know how to put it in perspective.
That it's 8 years.
8 years just seems like a
Avengers fight.
wildly long amount of time for almost nothing to have happened.
True.
And to be unfair,
I mean, in this, Peter Parker is 15 years old in this, so I mean, you backtrack 8 years, the bite didn't happen. But I do see where you're going with that. Nothing happens on a more local level than a global scale.
yeah, and it's not like I said,
all
it's
the
not
movies.
like I need there to be like an alien incursion every, like the annual whatever. I don't need an event. It's just 8 years seems like a widespread for nothing to happen. And that's also like that statement is not fair because a lot did happen. SHIELD fell.
I was going to say,
2
I
years
actually
after
disagree
this.
with you on this.
There are a lot of events that happen, but I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that I'm only seeing these events in these movies and it just feels so sparse to me.
See, like, without watching all of them sequentially as you guys are up to this point, this is especially why I wanted to take some notes as
you're the professional.
as I was watching. They do so much very, like, small name drops or small references to tie in that 8-year gap. Like, there's one sequence where somebody drops the name of the Triskelion, so the fact that they're taking a bunch of shit out of there, that goes straight to Winter Soldier.
They mentioned Segovia.
Yeah, they mentioned Sokovia, and even in school, they're learning about the Accords. God, what else?
Speaking of school, how about that Captain America video is on a VHS when Captain America did not get defrosted out of ice until well into the DVD age.
Right.
That was like a mid-90s VHS, and that guy got chiseled out of ice in like 2012 or something.
Maybe that's more. That's not a.
Right.
That's not a problem with. That's not an anachrony. That's a commentary on our school systems and the outdated tech and lack of funding.
You mean an anachronism?
It would have been better had they made it black and white to almost try and justify like he made it way back then. But
I
they
feel
just
like
decided-
that would have
Marvel-
been too far. Actually, if they had set it
Maybe,
up on
but
a
here's
projector,
Marvel again going like, we're just going to insert this and not care where it falls in line at all and step away. But people are going to get a laugh
tells
out of
them to
it. But
duck
if you
and
really
cover.
try and analyze it, then it fucking sticks out.
communism is all around you, kids.
I don't know. Actually, that wouldn't make any sense either, since he didn't fight commies. I don't know where else I would put this. I wanna give a shout out to the unsung actor Hannibal Buress here with his gym teacher. What a great job.
I don't know where else to put this, but I just want to give a shout out to the fucking terrible Captain America costume that he wears in that video. I hate the Avengers costume. It looks so stupid. He's wearing like a sock over his head. It looks horrible.
The only problem I had with the beginning is since they name drop things and they say like, freaking alien invasion and stuff like that, but I'm a dumb popcorn smashing moron, and I was like, I remember doing this with another movie where I was like, what year is it? Because they don't open with like 2008 or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, that's just happening.
Yeah.
With that point, so you guys are this far into the lineup of movies. Can you recall when Marvel decided to stop listing an actual year and just started doing the present day thing? Because I know in Phase 1 they were like in Iron Man 1 and a couple they actually solidified a date when those events were occurring.
Honestly, I could not tell you.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. Iron Man 3 has dates in the flashback. Whether it actually says what date the movie takes place in, I'm not sure, other than it takes place over the course of Christmas.
And that's where I think, like Kevin Feige and crowd like realized like we need to stop placing these in exactly a specific year. And they kind of just ghost changed that over, or maybe it was just better writing to just say present day.
I don't know. I mean, that's probably a choice. However,
or giving them too much credit, but
I mean, that's probably a choice that they made. However, it might be giving them a little too much credit just because, and I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure the next two Avengers movies do name years. Because the whole point of the 5-year jump was to make it take place during 2020 or 2019 or whenever it came out.
That makes sense, yeah.
Actually, I think it took place in the future because I think it was 2020 when Endgame happened, but I'm not 100% certain on that. But that one also is heavily tied to dates for reasons that Seth doesn't necessarily know yet.
Or care,
but I mean, we could
because
spoil
I made a
it, and
stupid
you would still go in fresh as
telling Andrew I wanted to watch all these goddamn movies. And 20
And now
weeks
we're
later,
here.
I'm sick of it.
So in the beginning, other than the 8-year time jump, how did you guys feel about the found footage? Let's catch you up of how Spider-Man was tied to everybody
I actually
else.
didn't care for it. I thought it was kind of annoying.
I don't mind it one way or another.
Like you didn't care for it, or you like didn't mind that they did it?
I don't think I minded that they did it, but I felt it's not found footage because they had it. But like the found footage was just kind of annoying to watch.
I'm kind of in Seth's boat. I don't mind that they did it. I remember seeing it the first time and it was kind of fun to be like, oh, this is where it fits into things, even though like we already know he's there, so it's not
It doesn't
really
matter.
giving us.
I mean, it's better than spending half the movie on him going to Oscorp and getting bit by a spider. And
I don't care one way or another. It is what it is, but I'm kind of with Seth where it was kind of annoying to watch. It was just kind of irritating.
I could see that as watching in the lineup, watching this stand alone, where I haven't watched any other films for a while. Well, I mean, for a while is when WandaVision ended. We went back and watched Age of Ultron. Still, that was a while ago. I actually didn't mind the found footage. Plus, it kind of helps solidify more of Peter Parker before, this whole movie, before he tries to just jump to be Spider-Man. You get that taste of this 15-year-old high schooler that is being thrusted into this world that he thinks he wants to be a part of, but has no idea what it's going to be like at all.
You get a taste of a 15-year-old who's thrust into this thing and won't shut the fuck up. Like that thing is annoying because it's all handy cam.
Mhm.
Like he's filming it off of his phone.
Yeah.
it's all haphazardly cut and edited.
Yeah, it's all just like him like whipping the camera around and he just like keeps fucking talking all the time. And like, when did this come out? 2017. So 4 years ago, it was cute. 4 years later, it's obnoxious.
I think
It's just like,
I can
just
see
give
it.
the kid some Ritalin and put him in his fucking suit and let's go.
I think the other thing
I got things to do.
the other thing for me
8:30
here,
already.
The other thing for me here is, again, I think a lot of this intro was me just kind of trying to figure out when it all takes place. Because again, like, when it first opens up and it's right after Avengers, it's like, okay, wait, is this current? What are they? I know they're talking about this, but like, so I guess this is in the past, and they do the 8 years later, and then they do Peter's thing, and I'm like, okay, is this after Civil War or before? Because like, it seems like he's already talking to Tony a bunch, but it also seems like he wasn't really Spider-Man for a long time. It just, I had trouble.
Wait, at what point were you having trouble figuring out whether it took place after Civil War or not? During the handy cam stuff? Oh, I mean, I guess it immediately answers that.
Right, but for that 1 millisecond, I had no idea what was happening.
You were spiraling out of control.
I was like, I need time.
You were at your corkboard connecting red strings?
No, I mean, they immediately answer it in the sense that, like, it's not like you have to wait long. But there is a whole bunch of stuff with him and Happy just being like, where are we going, Happy? You can't record all this crap. Oh my god, we're in an airport. Oh my god, we're going to Germany. I don't know why we're going to Germany. Like, there is a lot there that's not quite like...
I guess, and I can't say because I already knew, but I feel like I knew as soon as it started back then, as soon as they announced that they were, getting on the plane and everything, I was like, okay, they're going to the events of Civil War.
See, but I watched these in a vacuum. This is the only movie.
That is true. You watch these in a vacuum because you vacuum all the information out of your brain. You go in not remembering what the hell happened, who anyone is.
Yes.
The only thing you remember is that you hate it.
Yes.
I will give Seth a small defense. If you haven't watched all the movies or you haven't watched them in a while and you just thrust yourself into this one and you have this, the handycam footage, you're like, wait, where does this line up before you actually see the airport scene? And I mean on the tarmac.
Because I was trying to figure out if that was when... Because, like, Tony goes to his apartment.
So that's why I brought this up. Kirsten, as we were watching, she asks me, she's like, wait, how does Tony even, like, find Peter? And I kind of, like, paused the movie real quick and, like, I mean, in Civil War and did the whole catch-up. Like, Tony just finds him and he surprises him in his apartment. But, yeah, so, like, if you're just thrusted into this and all of a sudden you see, oh, he is being revealed a new Spider-Man suit and then the whole Civil War big fight.
So... I'm going to be a little unfair for a second.
Do it.
Go for it.
I think it's weird to criticize how to place, and I already said, like, it tells you the answer pretty quickly, but it's also like, you're looking at this, which is not unfair. Like, this is a valid way to watch this, but you're looking at this as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe where everything is connected to everything. And so I understand why your brain immediately goes, like, where does this fit? But it's also, like Pete said, like, watching it in a vacuum, I could see why you're confused. And I'm thinking, like, watching it in a vacuum, you're just watching a movie with a cold open. Mm-hmm. You're watching a movie, and it's not the first movie to open where you don't know exactly what's going on, and then you'll figure it out as you go.
Yeah, that's why I'm actually, like, that's why I wanted to ask you guys if it bothered you, because I banked on both of you not really caring for it. But, yeah, in a standalone vacuum, it sets viewers up really well. It catches you up of why he's about to have a whole 15 minutes of anxiety of trying to be contacted by Happy if there's a big mission or anything. Because in the whole 15-20 minutes of the first movie, it covers a lot of that, and then his whole, like, waiting for the next mission.
I'm sure I didn't have the same thoughts when I saw it when it came out, because I didn't watch 15 previous Marvel movies. I think here, since I do have that backlog, I'm just, like, trying to figure out where it goes.
And like I said, that's a valid way to look at it. I just think it's a weird way to critique it, I guess.
I'm here to talk,
It's not like you can't. It's just...
That's why we do this, to talk.
So anyway, Adrian Toomes and his crew of construction people are cleaning up after the Chitauri attack in New York, but then Damage Control shows up, which is now a government-sanctioned cleanup crew, tells them that they're not allowed to touch any of this stuff, the government is taking over. Phineas Mason sticks something in his pocket, but it doesn't matter because it turns out later that Toomes accidentally took a truck of stuff back with him, and then he just decides not to return it. So I don't know why we need to watch Mason stick something in his pocket.
I guess to put him on Toomes' side a bit more, I agree that it's probably not that necessary.
I mean, we already know he's on his side because he's part of his crew.
Like the old shot, like, he has a big crew, they all aren't in the movie. Like,
I know, but they queue up, like, the couple, like, the three
Do you know who those three people are, Pete?
I mean, not all their names. No.
So, Phineas Mason is the guy that is messing with stuff. Do you know who that is?
He's the tech guy.
He's the tinkerer.
Yeah.
Yes.
That makes sense, yes.
And then there is Herman Schultz, which I didn't know which one of them was Herman. I wasn't certain, and so I had to double check at the end, and that's how I saw the name of the other guy, and I am such a nerd that I knew who that was without having to look it up. But Herman Schultz is a Shocker. He's the second one. The first Shocker.
Yeah, he's the original Shocker, but in this movie, they make him the second Shocker.
Yes. The other Shocker is Jackson Bryce. Do you know who that is?
I do not know who that is.
So that is Montana of the Enforcers. And the reason I know that is
Really?
because he was also the Shocker on... I also just love the Enforcers, but I would not be able to tell their names otherwise. But in the Spectacular Spider-Man show, they also made him the Shocker.
How shocking.
Speaking of name drops, there's Betty Brant. And Betty Brant is doing a show with a kid named Jason. And later on you see his name, but I went through half the movie thinking that was Jason Masondale, the second Hobgoblin. But it's not. His name's like Jason something or other. I think it was a made-up name. And then Mac Gargan shows up. He is the Scorpion. He's the guy on the boat that gets his arm almost torn off, and then he shows up at the end of the movie.
And then they do the pre-main credit roll scene.
But speaking of the name drops and stuff, there's one that I really, really like.
Who does he vaporize?
And there's one that I really, really hate. The guy...
He vaporizes Jackson
wait.
Bryce.
Yeah, I knew that.
I really like the Liz reveal, especially because
The what reveal?
Liz. So anyone who knows Spider-Man
Boom, he got him.
goes into this movie thinking that's Liz Allen, and they never say her last name because it's full of name-dropping characters, and Liz Allen is a prominent Spider-Man friend. The whole twist, and what's wild is I knew the twist because I remember seeing spoilers and I didn't want to know, and I completely forgot about it and went through the whole movie not knowing that she was the Vulture's daughter. But that was like a spoiler that was revealed at one point, and I knew before I saw the movie and then forgot because I went through the whole movie going, that's Liz Allen. Of course it is. Like, there's Jason Masondale, and I was wrong. It's not Jason Masondale. But the reveal of her being Liz Toombs, I think, is a good reveal because it completely blindsides you on
If you know who Liz
the whole,
Allen is.
like, final act of the movie.
If you don't know who Liz Allen is, it's just a part of the movie. No blindsiding
Yeah, but I think
here.
I think it's, you could still be blindsided, but not, I think people who know are more likely to be
Expecting her.
not expecting that twist. The one that I don't like is MJ.
I remember not liking MJ when it happened, and I feel like I talked to you, and you're like, I don't get why it's a problem.
I don't think so, because I hated it then too. I have no problem with Zendaya as MJ. It's literally the fact that it's like a stupid twist at the end. It's the same thing as in The Dark Knight.
Oh, this sounds familiar. Okay, yeah, I think you're right.
It's the same stupid thing in The Dark Knight Rises when they reveal that this cop guy that's in the whole movie's real name is Robin. It's just like a stupid name thing where it's just like, just make her marry Jane from the beginning, because she's not. I think they call her Margaret or something at the end. Michelle. And like, it's fine. She doesn't need to be Mary Jane, but it's a stupid like little twist thing that's completely unnecessary, adds nothing to the movie, and is just, I don't know, irritating to me. Just make her MJ from the beginning. Or just, you know, I don't know. Did they even say Michelle before they revealed that her name is MJ?
Yeah. No, it's dropped at the very
kind
end.
So at that point, why not?
Maybe the teacher, unless if the teacher says her name during one of the roll calls for the academic stuff, but I didn't catch if they actually.
I don't think they do. So at that
Michelle.
point, like, he could do the same thing and just call her Mary, and then she goes, actually, it's MJ.
She wouldn't say that because
And,
I don't think the teacher's her friend.
Good point. You know what? I rescind my whole.
But you were expecting, like most people, for it to be Liz Allen and tying it to Osborn.
I guess I didn't think it had anything to do with Osborn.
You just thought that was a name drop.
But that was like, that
I
was
just
the
thought it was
red
a name
herring,
drop.
if you will, with that.
Unrelated to Toombs.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the connection, Toombs is so unrelated to Peter that Liz is the thing that brings, like, basically the whole movie together.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, watching it in the theater, I was completely blindsided by it. But it's because I went through the whole movie just assuming I knew who she was, but she wasn't. But anyway, we fast forward 8 years. Toombs has turned basically a little criminal business, retroactively building
Space weapons.
tech, and it starts out with the Chitauri stuff, and I believe by the end it's literally like anything that's appeared in these movies. But he's built basically this big vulture suit, which I think looks awesome.
You know, I was going to say this, I don't know, Pete's thoughts, but we've had this conversation before, Andrew, about how movie suits always get over-designed and piping and just like, well, it has to be like gritty and realistic. And we're just like, bring back the spandex.
Yeah.
I love Vulture's stupid little vulture suit.
I love his stupid little bird feet. I love his big dumb wings. I love his stupid
I was talking about the
flight suit.
classic Vulture, but I do think this suit works really well.
And I think Vulture is a character that can only work, or classic Vulture is a character that can only work in a certain capacity.
It would not work here.
And this is a way to, all of these characters are basically redesigned to fit in this Marvel universe, but this is one where I think he makes sense, and he is more interesting that way. It even ties in.
It's one of their better modernized suits.
Yes.
Seriously. It fits the character so well.
It also gives a reason for him to be called the Vulture beyond the fact that he made a stupid bird suit and he's bald. Like he isn't, like in the comics, he's literally just an old bald man and he puts on a bird suit, so he's the Vulture.
He has a big nose that looks like a beak.
And this, he's a Vulture because he's literally scavenging the carrion of super
And
animals.
he's bald and he has wings.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, he does have wings!
I thought you were going to say he does have bald.
He does have bald! Oh my god, he does not have hair.
Even though, even the costume works for him, it also, Michael Keaton fills
so good.
outfit so well.
I think it's because it was made for him.
He's so good. The suit works so well in conjunction with Keaton's performance as Toomes that you don't discredit or question why he's got this old bomber jacket on. Even, if you don't even look, his pants are full on flight pants and everything. It's they knocked it out of the park, but his performance when he's in that suit, you don't even
question it.
Take a moment to really look at it or question it. Yeah.
I think everybody in this movie does really well. I think the entire cast is really good. Even Tom Holland and the weird thing he does with his cheeks where he looks like he's holding in nuts for winter so that you can't hear his English accent. I think everybody does really well. I think Liz is kind of, I don't know if it's just the fact that she doesn't really do much for most of the movie, but she kind of feels like she's overacting a little bit. Or just kind of reading lines.
Really
maybe she's just not invested.
Direction of which character she is. Yeah, she seems to be a popular senior in high school, but they don't really try to clarify if she's in a certain clique, like the other films immediately did with MJ and Gwen. They both kind of immediately established those two characters in a certain clique. With Liz, they just were like, she's his love interest.
And she's just kind of beloved in the school. It's not like she's a popular girl, or she's popular in the sense that everybody seems to like her. Nobody seems to have a beef with her. But
yeah, which I personally, I don't mind that they kind of just do that. It's that she doesn't have to be leader of the popular girls or leader of cheer club or she just is. But I mean, of course, she's leading the academics club, but. They don't try and force her character to have to fit a cliche role, and that's where I guess how we are where we are with this discussion of the character is she just kind of is there and doesn't really make much of an impact until later in the movie where they are literally carrying the crowds that haven't pieced it all together, or if you will, they use her to link Peter and Toomes completely together. I mean, she spills the beans entirely during that amazing scene.
I think you're right. I think my problem with her is more the fact that she exists as love interest. I think almost every single one of her scenes, she exists to either be stared at by Peter or she has a brief 2-sentence conversation and then walks away. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't really do much, and I think that's where my problem lies. I don't think the acting is great, but I don't think it's bad. I think it's just
there.
There's no investment. I think she knows that she's just there to read a couple lines, and it just it reads as someone who just kind of showed up, said their lines. They're not doing a bad job. They're not doing anything, but there's nothing really for her to do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If you kind of look at how the character is set up, you expect her role to be much greater, as opposed to how that role was filled for the previous two series. Yeah, with the love interest character. I mean, but they did a good job on not making her character so great that you get focused on certain pieces. And maybe this is a weakness that they cause that, is that Liz does a really good job at bolstering Peter Parker. And I don't think he ever expects that, especially after the whole trigger of Ned blurting out, "Oh, Peter Parker knows Spider-Man," and it kicks him off to this awkward journey through
Puberty.
high school for the scenes that we do with him, like, because he gets so focused, like, oh, Liz has a crush on Spider-Man, so now I have to be Spider-Man around her all the time. But they use Liz to bolster Peter Parker. Like, she says, there are lines where she says, Peter Parker, you're like the smartest guy I know, and that he like is caught off guard by that because he's not thinking I'm Peter Parker. He's in I'm Spider-Man, stuck having to do the role of Peter Parker.
I will say that's a really good point, but I also...
Maybe I'm romanticizing it, but that's how I kind of got out of that.
I don't necessarily know, like, I think that's fair, and I think you're taking things that the movie said. I just don't know if it was presented in a way that impacted me like that. It was just like, stuff.
Right. That's fair. I'm trying to tone back and, be restricted other than the fact that, I really like Spider-Man. So yeah,
if
probably
you really
did.
like him so much, why don't you marry him?
I was waiting for something like that. Maybe I filled in a little bit more there, but I thought it was at least something that they did with the character. Upon us discussing, she was just kind of there.
So Peter is waiting
Which Pete?
for Tony
Are
Stark
we talking about Parker
to
or
let him...
Hutton? Can we say his name?
When we get towards the end and you're just like, I just want to be done. It's midnight. I want to go
You
to
want me
bed.
to know that it's my fault?
I want you to know that it is your fault. You have no one to... We watched the movie late because of you, and you kept us
we
here
watched the
with
movie
your
late because
bullshit.
Kirsten was drinking.
She's your wife, so you're
I
responsible.
don't own her. She's not my property, only in the eyes of the government.
Don't know about that. Maybe in the eyes of the Lord.
No, that's right. Yeah, in the eyes of the Lord, she's my property.
I don't want to agree to that, though.
I don't either. I don't like it.
Even though it was
That's just the hand I was dealt.
It means you got to clean up after.
That's just the hand I was dealt, I didn't ask for this.
You did.
Oh my God,
literally.
I did.
So where do you want to pick up, Andrew?
Peter is waiting for Tony to tell him that he's ready to be an Avenger, and so he's just doing small-time bullshit, and Tony Stark is a fucking dick. And I don't know what the movie wants to say with Peter and with Tony. It seems to want to say, like, yeah, Peter's in a little over his head, and he needs to learn to, not just, like, run off doing whatever. But at the same time, Tony is blowing him off, and, like, they do a whole thing where he's like, I wasn't blowing you off, I was actually listening to your voicemails, and, I was the one who called the FBI and all that bullshit. But also, like, then fucking tell the kid. Like,
Exactly.
You should know that this kid is still, like, he's leaving you these voicemails. You should know what he's doing. Like, you have no excuse. Not that, like, it's not necessarily like, oh, you got to tell the kid. I get it. Like, it's not necessarily his business. But if you want to keep him out of it, you got to fucking tell him. He's a teenager. On
the
top
biggest
of that,
thing to prove that, too, is the whole fact of Civil War. His whole complaint to Cap the entire movie was, why wouldn't you have just told me the entire time?
well, Tony Stark doesn't learn any fucking lesson. In this.
Exactly.
We've learned through all these movies. He sucks. Everything is his goddamn fault. He's a raging dickhead. And also, like, I don't know. On top of that, like, it feels like it wants to have that, like, teenager thing where it's like a coming of age. The kid screws up and they learn to be better. But I don't like Peter does screw up in this movie. I don't think he screws up as bad as Tony makes it sound. To be fair, things didn't go as bad as they could have, and if they did, that would have been on Peter. However, Tony put him in that position, and Peter is also someone who I think this movie at some times with its message does this poorly, but Peter, if there's one identifying attribute to Peter Parker and Spider-Man, it's guilt. And that Peter will always do, there's also a little bit of selfishness in him, but generally he will always do whatever he can because he can. And Tony should know this. And Tony continues to put him in a position where he basically put him in a position to screw up. And then he's like, you done fucked up, kid. And it's like, I don't know, you did this. It's no different than when in Iron Man 2 when Natasha is letting Tony get drunk, and then later on he puts on a robot suit and starts blasting things, and she's like, hey, Nick Fury, Tony Stark can't be trusted. And it's like, I agree with you. Tony Stark sucks and he can't be trusted, but also, like, you put him in that position, lady.
You're
Like,
supposed to watch him.
The denial of being the enabler.
yeah, like, I don't know. I don't like Tony Stark. I fucking
I know.
hate the guy. He's
How about Pete's
he
like
drags this
sincere,
movie
like,
down.
oh, I know, Andrew, it'll be okay. I know you.
No,
hate-
I have a lot of issues. I have a lot of issues with Tony Stark also. Although it doesn't. This is where it gets like complicated because like how they kind of tied Tony Stark's character off. If Andrew, you can put aside Robert Downey Jr.'s performance of him, the way the MCU tied off, or maybe ended Tony. Who knows?
I don't, because I haven't seen any of these movies.
Well, you never know what they decide to pull back and add more to, because this is a huge cash cow for them. The way they kind of did Tony's story at the end of the MCU thus far.
I thought you were going to say Tony's.
It kind of redeems Tony for me a wee
Hey, when
bit.
I get pissed at midnight, you're the blame.
It's not the last person to speak.
I don't want to listen to your rumblings about Infinity War.
That's fine.
Just because I've made it this far without anything. I don't want to sit here
No.
and you be like, hey, you know...
Well, yeah, now I got to the point and then I fucking botched it. Anyways, I don't hate him as much as I used to. You can find a fun way of editing that one.
He doesn't edit it if you say it
I'll
at the
figure
end.
something out, but I will say I disagree with you. I mean, it's your opinion, so I don't disagree with the fact that you don't hate it. But like,
No, and I knew that was...
I come away thinking he does not earn the story he got.
Can we get there? Can we
But
have this
we'll see how I
conversation
feel
we
when
get
I
there?
watch it again. Seth, why don't you take the reins so you can go to bed?
I'm actually not complaining about that. I bet I would have. I bought that beer, but I didn't drink because I saw what it did to Kirsten. I like how this movie. So once we get caught up to speed, once Pete's like running around Brooklyn and doing fun stuff and helping, giving people directions and interacting with the streets, I think a lot of that is a ton of fun. And that's kind of the Spider-Man I like. I like the Spider-Man that gives directions. Going with like the PS4 game, I like the Spider-Man that just kind of takes the subway. He's a New Yorker. Why would he do anything different? I think especially because once you get to that point, not that I think the Tombs backstory is, a slog to get through. I think it's all interesting enough. I think it kind of keeps a good pace.
I'll say this movie is long, but I think it uses a lot of its time well. I will say it does I think there's stuff that hits better because the time they spend, but from just an overall narrative, there's a bit of meandering, and I think everything that happens in Washington is unnecessary in the larger scale.
I would agree. I actually think the movie crawls to a halt in Washington.
It adds stuff, and there is interesting stuff that happens in there. It also a lot of that time is used for stuff that I hate with the tech suit, but I just don't think you could basically cut that out and write in a couple extra lines or scenes, and it would have most of its connective tissues still there.
I think it loses a lot of what I really liked in Brooklyn. I think it kind of makes this grandiose thing out of the Washington Monument. And I agree with you, Andrew. I don't care for when he's locked in the bunker.
I think the bunker scene is fine. I think there's some just fun little moments in there. I think a lot of the comedy in this movie hits well, and I think there's a couple little beats in there that
as
are
much
fine.
as I've been complaining about the comedy in the recent movies, I think this feels natural.
I just don't think it's necessary, and like I said, I don't care for the tech suit. I like that they found a way to put the web armpits in the movie, but I don't need him gliding. I don't need a drone. I really hate kill mode. I don't need a million different web things. I don't need all the stupid HUD on his eyes. You
just need Peter Parker. You just need Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I think the best part is at the end when he gets the suit taken away and he puts on his old suit and,
kicks ass.
You know what I don't like about the tech suit? Well, a lot of things. I agree with you on a lot of that stuff, Andrew. I don't like when him and Ned
easily hack something from Tony Stark.
Yeah, but I don't know. I really hated Peter just complaining to Ned about turn off baby mode, and Ned being like, no, maybe this is there's a reason. And Peter's just like, Ned, please. That felt...
But there also isn't a reason. That's something that I find kind of stupid. He utilizes a lot of that stuff to save everybody. The worst thing that happens is that he shoots the wrong webs twice. And I don't think that really affects anything.
I think I agree. And some of this is probably a little bit of bias about me not really caring as much. As I just said, a lot of the comedy hit and it felt natural. I didn't care for a lot of the tech suit comedy. And I didn't really need a scene of him not knowing how to use his suit.
How about with this techie suit, which I also don't necessarily really love, that when he hacks the suit and then activates the AI, and the AI does the whole congratulations for, graduating the training wheels protocol. What the hell was with Tony handing him this suit and not even activating the training wheels protocol at all? He just hands him the suit in a shell mode and doesn't expect this super scientific tech kid to find a way, or find somebody to find a way around it.
What did that suit do before they hacked it?
Just the standard protocol
Yeah,
Peter
it was
Parker
a Spider-Man
stuff.
suit.
It was just the eye filters, and that was it?
The eye filters, I mean, at least all that Pete used was the eye, the
That's
eye.
what I'm trying to think
and,
is like what was locked
and the
behind it.
in the base web slinger, everything, like the whole suit was locked behind it. So if you will, Tony handed him the suit, not even in a default state. He handed him a suit in an unactivated state. And there, if he activated it, Pete would be in the training wheels protocol to actually learn the suit, what it could do, how to use it. And then after that is having full-on access, as she, says, like, oh, welcome to the whole, here's everything.
I didn't catch that.
They have the AI even call him out. It's like, you seem very unaware of your web configurations.
That's a good point.
Yeah. But then again, this is also the guy...
It's just kind of like weird. It is like, if you want to go with the tech suit and you're going to have this tech having all these like things that it can do, why just do such a pullback moment of, oh, Parker's just given this amazing suit in not even an activated state. It's a jumpsuit at that point.
We did just talk about how Tony wouldn't answer Peter's calls and just hires the FBI without telling him, so that, because I assume if Tony told Peter, hey, thanks, I got the FBI on it, Peter would be like, okay, great, let me know if you need help.
Yeah, listen to me.
He'd back down.
He'd be like, I'm going to keep...
He thought nobody listened to him, so therefore he had to press harder. He had to do it
because nobody else would
stay on the tracks.
Yeah, Peter, like, they go, like, you fucked up, Peter, but it's like, as from Peter's perspective, literally no one was listening to him as super crimes were happening.
Yeah.
It's stupid. Here's two other questions about the suit. One, when the hell did Tony make the new Iron Spider suit that we see at the end of the movie? If he had everything locked behind the training wheels protocol, like, I assume some point immediately after giving Peter that suit, he began working on version 2.
Mm-hmm. That's how he rolls. That's what he does with the Iron Man suits.
So he had this whole thing with, like,
the Iron Spider suit was shown at the very end.
No, but what I'm saying is, how quickly did he put that suit together? He gave Peter a suit with functionality locked behind it. And Peter had been wearing that suit for quite a while without using any of that functionality. I would assume in order to have that suit at the end of the movie, Tony began building it immediately.
But that's what he does with that's who he is.
Yeah, if you kind of take all of it, again, I don't want to try and speak positive because Andrew's here.
You can speak positive, you'll just be wrong.
I'm the one who hates these movies.
The whole point of Iron Man 3 was the fact that Tony couldn't stop. Literally, as soon as he ended
I get
one
that,
model
but
of something, he
I
immediately
just
jumped
find
to
it
that,
weird, the lack of foresight.
Well, that's true.
Second question, why the hell Tony has an entire team of super people, and the only one he builds a super suit for is a kid, not on the team, that he doesn't think is responsible enough to hold on to a super suit.
Yeah, if Tony...
Who already has superpowers. If
Tony loves Spider-Man so much, why does he marry him?
It's a good point, but in the grand scheme of things, if you look at the roster that is the team on the...
He made Vision's suit.
Civil War, I mean, everybody else didn't have a suit. He didn't make Vision's suit. He made
Vision's suit in the sense that he made Vision.
There's always that question in the comics where they're like, why wouldn't Iron Man just build iron suits for everybody on the Avengers? And it's like, because it's comic, whatever. But like, he literally builds an Iron Man-esque suit for Peter Parker, but he doesn't build one for Captain America or the Falcon or Scarlet Witch, who still is running around in just a red jacket.
Maybe it's because... No, your last one solved that problem.
Yep. That was a dead ringer there. How long have you been waiting to figure that one out?
Just thought of
it. He's been sitting on that one since Age of Ultron.
So one thing that I thought was pretty good, though, with this movie is they find a way to weave the already dragged through the dirt experience that is origin films, and especially... We all know Spider-Man's origin story. I mean, whether you saw Tobey Maguire series or Andrew Garfield series or any variation of any cartoon, everybody that knows Spider-Man knows the origin story. And that's one thing I really appreciate about this movie is we didn't have to go through the whole spider bite. But in the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie, after Ned discovers his secret, they do small little tidbits that kind of walk you through the origin without blatantly being, this is the origin story. He has his best friend that learns who he is, and then the next thing that we hear after that is mentioning the spider bite. They don't even go into detail. Was the spider bite happened at Oscorp? It's kind of like
throwaway lines.
It was a really good way of having to do the story that is so exhausted for fans or even just people that have to watch Spider-Man materials, whether they have somebody in their family or somebody tied to them that wants to always go see everything that is Spider-Man. I thought it was a very good way of not continuing to just exhaust that
I'm
story.
always for no origins.
I disagree. If I don't watch Thomas and Martha get shot in an alley, how do I know Batman's an orphan? I need to start every movie watching those pearls fall.
For me, I do, part of me is sad that we don't get some exposure to Ben, but again, on the same point that I made, I'm kind of glad that they found another way to pile on this need of responsibility to Peter Parker without having to do the whole thing of, oh, I got my uncle killed.
I agree. The problem is Tony Stark basically slots into that Ben role. He just doesn't die.
You wish he did.
I do. There may as well not be a Ben Parker, and it's just Tony Stark. He's the role model. He's the one that teaches him how to be a hero, even though Tony Stark is literally the worst one to follow. He could have followed fucking Quicksilver, and he's dead and was a villain for a while.
Poor Pietro. Something that I did like, though, on that line of, they try to slot Tony in as a father figure, even though he has a throwaway line where he said he sounded like his dad. And clearly he does very much his own dad's actions. As we've already talked about, the whole, who do you think called the FBI? Is like, well, you should have told the damn kid. Because he provided you with all the information that you needed to prove to not be some psychotic idiot, other than the fact that you're Tony Stark and Iron Man, delivering this information to FBI that had no idea this operation was going on underneath them, as Toombs revealed. But near the end of the movie, they did a really good job at bringing May back into the fold of Peter's life, and him having to realize, like, oh, it is me and Aunt May. They didn't do it too strongly, but they did it just enough. If you're looking, or if you're really listening to it, she has a line where it's just you and me, and I think that happens like after the suit is taken back, and you really start to see Peter have to look at the life of Peter Parker in perspective. Now that the suit's gone, because he put his whole identity into that, now he's just himself, and then May kind of has to bring in that stern parent feel, which they kind of, through the early steps of the film, they let her be this, oh, we're just kind of like friends, and yeah, I'm your guardian, yeah. And then later in the movie, they establish, like, no, we are family, like, I'm responsible for you, so, like, pick up the fucking phone.
So I agree that they do that bit where he loses the suit, and then he's like, without the movie really screaming at it too, it's like, who is Peter Parker? And he kind of gets his life back in order. I will say one thing that I would change, and it would take a lot more than just reorganizing the movie. There'd have to be some writing changes, but I feel like you could work the DC segment into the movie better if you had him lose the suit sooner, and the DC thing happens when he's trying to get his life back in order, and he's just like, I'm kind of pouty because Tony Stark yelled at me and he took away my suit, so I can't be Spider-Man, but then he has to put on the suit to save everybody. However, when you do that, you lose the moment where he puts the suit, like, he puts back on his shitty old suit to confront the villain of the movie and basically have the final showdown, which I think is a better time to put on the suit. But I feel like that whole Washington thing works better if that happens during the I got to figure out who Peter Parker is segment of the movie, as opposed to just like, let's go do some bullshit for a bit. But like I said, it requires way more rewriting than...
Yeah, that's quite a bit to fix around.
So where are we? We're just
having fun, I think it slows down at DC. I think the ferry is kind of boring.
Yeah, I don't care for the ferry thing.
Basically, once DC happens, and I guess I say DC, and again, I include the learning the tech suit stuff. Once that portion starts, it slows too far down for me until it gets to Pete asking Liz to homecoming. And then it picks back up. Because I really don't care about any of this DC or ferry stuff.
Yeah, the ferry, I don't know. The ferry is where you learn that Tony Stark is a complete reprehensible dick.
I learned that when he called the other kid a pussy.
I don't know. I don't care for... I think the fight on the ferry is okay. There's like some fun stuff that happens before the ferry breaks in half. But once it does, then it's just... I don't know. It's just a bunch of nonsense. And then I don't care for the... I don't like Peter holding two things together. I don't care for that. And that's something that apparently shows up in more movies than I thought. I do like Peter lifts the heavy thing, which this movie does. However, I also don't like the way it does that. I have a lot of... it's weird. Watching this time, I have nitpicks in that.
I will grant you the ferry scene in the sense that I don't know why they have to try to apply Spider-Man's strength by him having to hold two things together and his body doesn't get torn in two. I think him having to lift, like, basically a building off of him shows that into better perspective, and that scene is, it's much more foundational for Peter Parker / Spider-Man even. It's like kind of a coming to terms moment for him, where like if you just took the fairy scene, the fairy strength scene out for that check and just gave me the crumbling building, it would be so much better.
Part of the thing is with the fairy scene is it's supposed to be like, this is Peter's heroic moment, but then it's undercut because it's like, nope, it's not his heroic moment. It's Tony Stark's. Look at what a great hero Tony Stark is. And I'm like, Iron Man didn't do like he saved those people, but he also like, that's the guy that made Ultron. So he doesn't get to yell at anybody.
But they show you an Ultron
mirror.
head having been destroyed at one point in the movie.
Who did? Oh yeah, you know what? I take it back. That redeems Tony Stark, #1 superhero. Tattoo his face on my back. I don't like the lifting scene. Like, I don't mind the lifting scene in this, but I don't like... That is a specific homage to... Ooh, let's see if I can remember the issue number.
I actually know this. I don't care. I don't know Spider-Man stuff much. I mean, I don't read a ton of Spider-Man, but I actually know this because I think this Ditko sequence is... I think that's the reason why it never hits right. It's always something that I watch and I'm like, hey, they're doing the thing. But I always just... I mean, this is... great paneling, storytelling. I mean, Ditko knocked it out of the park here. I even know the story title.
I want to say, I don't know the story title. I want to say it's in the 30s.
Yep.
I'm going to say 30, 35 feels too, like, I think I'm picking it because it's
middle?
like like right in the middle of something. I'm going to say 34,
33.
34, 33. I don't know the title. What is it?
Oh, now that I said it, it's gonna, something about destiny. This is my destiny or something like that.
I just pulled it up. It's If This Be My Destiny.
Oh, it's like a weird fucked up version of This Is My Destiny.
There's a lot of... It's a reoccurring thing, and I think that is a good sequence of panels. The thing that I don't like in this is, in this movie, it's kind of like a weirdly... Selfish isn't the right word, but it's... In the sequence in the comics, in most of the times when Peter lifts something, he's lifting the thing that finally motivates him to lift the thing beyond human strength is something beyond himself. In If This Be My Destiny, I think it's literally when he thinks of Aunt May, and it's a weird like she'll die without me sort of thing. So there's still like a little bit of stuff, but it's like him thinking of her and leaving her on his own, and he thinks of everyone else around him, but I think it's literally her that is what kicks him off to lift it. And there's a whole bunch of times where it's like, you know, there's I remember in Dan Slott's run, there's a point where he's in a subway and it's collapsing and he lifts it because there are people around, and it's usually something like that. And this, it's just kind of like he has that thought where he looks at his mask and he hears Tony Stark yell at him about how if he's nothing without the suit, he doesn't deserve to have the suit. And he's like, no, I deserve to have the suit. I'm a big, strong boy. And then he lifts it up. And I'm just like, I don't like that.
I know why they use that. I guess, yeah, that is his maybe motivation other than Aunt May. But, like, I don't know. Because, like, the first part of that, when he realizes all that just building is on top of him, he actually, like, has a moment where he is literally a child crying out for help. And I think Tom Holland knocks he knocks that emotion out of the park in that sense. Whether you like that scene or not, I'll die on that hill. Like,
no, I think he does that
the
well.
way he does those lines, like, somebody please, like, come help me, anybody, and then he just kind of like realizes nobody's coming. It is only him. And then they do an homage to a very specific Ditko cover, like you mentioned, Seth. But, like, I feel like it's because he's looking literally at the mask he made and then half of his face. For me, it's just like he basically is making his own choice finally. And they did the whole tease with Tony, but, like, I feel like he finally just does that.
I don't disagree that is what's happening. It's just like that as the motivation. I think the movie gets that across. I think that is a choice that they made. I disagree with that choice, though. And it's weird because it's not like I need the Vulture to say, like, now I'm going to go after your aunt. And then he's like, no, I got to save Aunt May. And then it turns May into a damsel. I don't need that either. It's just, there's something about how it turns into this whole,
it would have been better had they not had Tony say anything.
Yeah, if he had looked at his mask and then he just, like...
I mean, his motivation as he's lifting is, like, you are Spider-Man. You are Spider-Man. Like, he's believing that he actually can do what he, previously believed that he could do. But that part of that belief may have been in misplacement of the suit. But the fact that he himself will always be Spider-Man no matter what clothing he's in. I think
my thoughts on this, again, I have a special place in my heart for those Ditko pages, but even outside of that, I agree with you that I really like, him calling for help, him struggling. My problem with this scene, only related to the movie, comes into, I feel like that's really powerful to watch him just basically kind of give up a little. Calls for help, and then it weirdly, instead of, in me watching it, it just kind of felt like he was like, help! Well, anyways, I need to be strong. Like, and I know you can't just sit on that scene forever, and there's nothing really left to do with that scene. But I feel like they just kind of are like, okay, well, he's no longer gonna whine, so let's move on. And then I think if you're nothing without the suit, then you don't deserve it, I think is a really good line. My problem with that in this context is he's under the rubble, he looks at himself with the half mask, he hears the voiceover, and then he's just like, I'm Spider-Man, 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 Spider-Man. And it's just like, if you go back to, if you're nothing without the suit, okay, well, the suit is Spider-Man. And if he's just like, if you're nothing without the suit, and he's like, I am nothing without the suit, I'm Spider-Man, like, to me, that wasn't Peter overcoming this.
That's true.
I don't care for that line, and I think part of it, again, I hate Tony Stark. It's the fact that it comes from Tony Stark, because I do feel like Tony Stark is. There's that line in Avengers where Captain America, when they're all fighting, and he says, like, take off the suit and what are you? And he's like, billionaire, philanthropist, whatever. But you take off the suit and he is nothing. Like, that's not true, but like, Tony Stark sucks. He's a jerk. He's a dick. Watching these movies, I don't feel like Tony Stark would have any value without that suit. And so it felt weird coming from him. It felt hollow. I think maybe if there were more lines with it, if he heard other lines from other people, like, to go back to May, before this all happens, when Peter decides to get his Peter Parker life back in order, he goes home after Tony takes away the suit, and May is freaking out, and she has that kind of little talk with him, and I honestly don't remember what she says in it. But if she had said something about how worried she was about him or something, and he hears that echoed while looking at the mask, then you could probably throw in the Tony Stark line, and then, I don't know, a line from Ned saying, like, but you are a kid.
We gotta build a Death Star.
But, like, if they threw more lines in there, then I could just, like, lump all those lines together into, like, this is Peter believing in himself and, realizing he has something to fight for and things beyond him matter. But instead it just comes down to, fuck you, Tony Stark, you're not my real dad. And then he picks the thing up. And I don't
I'll give you that. That would have made it way more better.
But he lifts the dumb thing up. There is a thing, I think it's right after he lifts it up, because he couldn't have been trapped there for very long, because Vulture is like perched on a
building. Yeah.
Sign.
Yeah, he's just like on the top corner of the building, basically.
Yeah, it's a really cool visual. But I was just like, how long has he been sitting there? How long has Peter been?
Well, especially because when he's flying after the plane, Pete's just like there. He's already webbed onto him, and it's just like, oh, I guess you weren't really in any sort of hurry, huh, Vulture?
Right. And how about, as cool as him perched on that, as soon as he starts to fly and Peter, is able to web onto him, how many times did Peter web onto him in all the fights in this specific scene? Because it's a new suit, he just kind of like shrugs it off like, oh, well, that's different.
Yeah.
And he just radios the Tinkerer, is like, oh, there's the, no little extra tug. It's like, you didn't think to check to see if like something you've already experienced multiple times has occurred again?
To
or
be
he
fair,
just
he thinks the kid
he believed
is dead.
that much that he squashed the spider like that.
I could believe that.
And I think he does like turn around and look, and Peter conveniently like flings to the side at that moment. But speaking of when Peter webs to him earlier in the movie, during the ferry scene, how about he webs Shocker and Toomes shoots a laser beam at the web so Shocker can run away right before they start fighting. And then Peter webs Toomes to the boat, and he's just like, I guess I'm stuck here forever. And I'm like, I don't know, stop shooting at the kid and shoot at the web that's right in front of you. But he's just like, I guess this is my life now. I'm tethered here for the rest of eternity.
He's a dumb criminal.
I'll shoot this other guy as he's running away, but nope, I'm just can't be bothered.
So I know, since we have been jumping around and everything, what are your thoughts on the whole Aaron Davis scene?
I like it.
It's fine. It's a fun little,
I don't care
scene.
for the intimidation mode joke, but I do like the interaction between Donald Glover and Spider-Man.
I do really like the line that he gets across to him, is no matter if it was, again, because we don't like the tech suit, not using an intimidation mode, but the whole line that he has, like, you'll need to get better at this part of the job. Because at this point, with Aaron Davis, when Peter has full access to, what's he name her? Karen, and she brings up the footage from the interactions, and that's how he's able to track down Aaron Davis. In the bottom right corner, they already say that he has the alias of Prowler set up here. So Aaron Davis, according to this, has already been found to be the Prowler. So like he already is the bad guy, and that kind of strengthens.
To be fair, that could just be a street name. He seems to be nothing more than a thug. He doesn't want to buy, like, when they're selling him, he's like, why are you trying to upsell me? I just want something that I can mug a guy with.
True, I know. I'm just, when like he slams the trunk and really catches Peter off guard. Like, there's that whole scene of, like, you know, Spider-Man jumps back, and even the little drone, like, gets scared, which, I mean, is a little comedic relief in some ways. But, like, it brings more power. Here's somebody who actually knows a little bit of, again, maybe he's not the full Prowler that we know that he becomes, but yeah, he could just be a low criminal still, but he knows in some form of an underbelly the fact that he's not intimidated by this kid in a super powerful suit, even though we already saw him kind of kick a little bit of ass.
He can't be the Prowler. Hobie Brown for life. Mostly because Hobie is a funny name.
It is a funny name.
I like better, the whole reason he talks to Spider-Man at all is because when they turn their guns on him earlier in the movie, Peter jumps in and says, if you're going to shoot at someone, shoot at me.
Yep.
And I think that's like a good, like, Peter putting himself first moment, and that Aaron recognizes it.
Game recognized game.
It's a good bit. But that scene could be excised from the movie entirely.
Sure.
And that's not to say there's anything wrong with it, just that it doesn't really serve anything other than just like a little character moment and a fun nod to a comic character, and he makes reference to
well, and I was reading stuff,
Miles.
So I didn't realize Miles was influenced by Childish Gambino. I didn't realize that. And basically it was like kind of the reason he was made.
Donald Glover voiced him in one of the cartoons.
I was also reading in regards to this movie, if Donald Glover wouldn't be Aaron Davis, then they were just going to scrap that whole scene. Or I think they were going to just scrap Aaron Davis. Which just, I mean, I just bring it up because you were like, it doesn't really say a ton. It has some nice stuff in it, but you could take it out, and I think the production crew would even agree.
Yeah, it is a scene that could be easily excised, but it does, I mean, it has value in the movie. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it being there. It's just removable scene, and it's not the only one.
Oh, speaking of, I hate the stealth jet scene.
So the stealth jet scene is infamous in my brain because I know how much you hate it, and you always reference it as being nauseating. Watching it this time, I didn't mind it. I didn't think it was as bad as I remember it being, because I remember it being annoying the first time. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of other CGI scenes we've had in other movies. I honestly thought it was fine. I do think the CGI in this movie is hit or miss. There are, especially with Spider-Man, there's a lot of, he is very obviously CGI, much like in Civil War, where he just kind of
when he goes to the upstate Avengers facility and he watches the Quinjet take off, it looked really bad.
I guess I didn't notice that, but the stealth jet was just kind of like, I think my big problem with it is, like a lot of things, like it's unnecessary. It could have just been a jet. It is stealth after it already takes off in the middle of the city, and then it goes up into the clouds, and it's like, did it really need to be stealth? Does it matter? Like, I know that there's a lot of important stuff on there, but there's also like, there's no pilots. It's all automated. It's just there to be like a cool CGI thing. I honestly did not mind it that much. I thought it was fine.
It's so hard to tell.
Whatever. The only part I don't like is when Peter's crawling underneath it and he's like big on top. I didn't like that just because it looks stupid.
Yeah.
But
it does seem like it should stand out, but it fits into the ostentatious, grandiose personality that they give to Tony, and the fact of like, well, it's an unmanned ship and it can go into stealth mode, so yeah, it can carry all this shit from the tower, I guess.
I can build a stealth jet and put all my fun stuff in here, but Falcon, you're still cool with like that old suit that you
military
wore
suit he stole
12 years ago when you were.
Yep.
You don't need an upgrade for that or anything, do you? Because I got all these schematics for this Spider Kid. Real sweet. Gonna give him a kill. He's not gonna have to think anymore. The suit's gonna do all the work.
Wear
for
your dumb
him.
head crown, Wanda.
There's like 150 different web shooter things.
5,000.
There's a lot more than is reasonable.
500 something. No, he said like 500.
That's ridiculous. That is way more than is reasonable.
Here. This is going to be the rest of the episode. Let's see if we can come up with 500 different ways to utilize a web.
Let's see if we can come up with 15.
Oh my God.
And we can't... Well, does that include the ones in the movie? How many did they use in the movie? Are we going to do this? It's 12:10.
There's a stun one.
Web grenade.
We're not going to do this.
Taser. There was a taser.
Taser web. Web grenade. multi-webs.
The tether ones where you stick it, like you shoot it at one thing and it shoots a line out to the other side. He used that on the boat.
Ricochet,
The ricochet web, which he used in the
regular swing webs.
Rapid fire.
Didn't we say that? That was the multi-web. Or are those different things?
Well, there's multi-web.
We're on our way to 500. We'll count
it. Yep. Because they highlight it in the ferry when he hits 2 people with 1 split web, so that would be multi-web. And then the rapid fires when he freaks out, when he wants just the default web option, and he's like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Rapid fire is default in
the
kill
arm
mode."
pits.
Do those count as a webbing?
It's webbing.
I don't think they count.
Oh, but it's not from his web
but is
canister.
But it's not a web.
No, you're right. I agree.
This is part
These
of
are
the
all
suit.
like from his canister. We're at 7.
What about flame webs? Do you think there's ones that light themselves on fire and also flame retardant webs?
Ones that don't light themselves on fire?
Ones that don't get lit on fire. I don't think I don't think like the flame retardant suits are like they light themselves on, they try to light themselves on fire.
They're flame retardant.
But they are eternally trying.
They're always in a state.
They're full of matches.
Oh man, they're full of matches.
We're at 7, by the way. Out of 500.
Yeah, we're good.
What about ballistic webs that are just blunt force? They're so dense. It's so dense.
Auto kill webs.
Was that a web or was that a mode?
No, it's a web, but it shoots like a bullet. It's basically a bullet, but it's made out of webs. But they're hard like a bullet.
So wouldn't that be just what Seth had already brought up?
We gotta get the 500, Peter.
His are very narrow. It's the shape. You know, a narrow... Mine's like throwing a baseball at somebody. His is like shooting a bullet.
Okay,
Yeah,
there you go.
that's different.
Yep.
Mute webs, where you shoot it directly. It's the same as all the other webs, but
are they
they're
location
aimed
based?
only
Yeah.
at the mouth, and they only get someone to shut up when they're trying to tell you that you don't count one of these to 500.
Do you guys remember when Ned and Peter were building his Death Star Lego in the fucking band room?
Yeah, what was up with that? And they don't even finish.
Hey, do you remember when the fucking Shocker goes into a school and is like looking for stuff? And it's like still a school, and then he hears a noise where you think, I don't know, students still are, and he puts his hand on his gun. Like, you can get out of that by just being like, yeah, I'm looking for my son. Like, I'm here to pick up my son. Like, I'm just wandering around.
I don't think Peter could have gotten away
No,
with
I'm
that.
talking about Shocker. Because Shocker puts his hand on his gun when he
Roaming
hears
the
him
halls,
in the
yeah.
science department or whatever, or the shop.
Do you remember when they were building the Death Star in the band room, and then Ned said, "Here, Peter, you can put on the final piece, which is clipping the Emperor onto the top of the Death Star, much like he wrote it in the movies." How about when they're tracking they can track, I was going to say Klingon, the Chitauri energy thing, but only when it like emits something. They can't just track it in general, even though it is constantly apparently emitting something, because it burns the bed in Washington, so that now that we know that it's dangerous, much like the infamous, I don't think I've mentioned it on this podcast, but I mentioned it on the last podcast, the infamous Robo-Reptar scene in Rugrats that I always think of, where there's an evil Reptar, but then they realize that he's actually a robot, and once they realize that, he never stops making robot noises. Now that we know that the Chitauri thing is dangerous, it's burning through the sheets of the hotel bed, but they've also been just like carrying it in a backpack, and then Ned has it in his pocket, and it never burns through the hole in his pocket, or he notices that it's, I don't know,
Everyone
warm.
sees it shine through his pocket. It's dumb.
And then it explodes, but it like explodes around everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Karen like explains how its radiation is basically degrading and everything, so hence why it's going to blow up. And yeah, you'd think if it singed the bed sheets to the level that it did, Ned totally should have felt how hot that thing was.
Maybe it's like one of those like saw
Absolutely.
blades that stops when it gets close to your hand, but if it's next to non-bio material, it burns through it.
Do you remember when 2 high school kids used a laptop to hack into a suit made by the smartest superhero on the planet?
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah.
And then later on, Ned is just like, I'm going to use Google Maps to figure out where you are and also pull up the owner's manual for the car you're in. I'm the tech
And
guy.
remember when Happy
Yeah.
is like so secretive, but anybody can just find his phone number?
Is everybody...
Stupid? Yeah.
Does everybody know that moving day is happening?
No.
Then how does Toombs know?
Well, I mean,
Because they've been
he's
planning it for a
stealing
while,
from them
apparently.
for so long.
Yeah, I think Toombs would have some sort of plan or
Connection,
something of
yeah.
like,
because clearly they've known about it for a long time since he's been telling
Yeah.
Tinkerer, no, don't freaking do the high altitude seal, and then
Stop making
until
me
he's
fun
forced
things.
to.
You have to
Yeah.
you have to imagine that he did his
Next, you're going to
homework.
come up with 500 different types of wings. I ain't got time for that, Tinkerer.
I do like Tinker. I think that actor did a really good job with him.
I like when he looks at his phone and he's like, I'm an inquisitive man.
Yeah.
No, so what was the high altitude MacGuffin?
I think it was the completion of Toombs' suit to work with the full on like mega wings that he has at the end.
Okay.
Like, it is the final like suit to be able to pull off a job at the altitude that
At
the
such a
stealth
high
jet was supposed to be. Yeah.
Okay. But then Pete can just go there in his dumb old normal suit. How's that oxygen up there, Pete? Pretty thin?
That's a point. Yeah,
You could write a reason why, but I find it weird that the whole thing was they made a new suit for high altitude, and it's just to tease the fact that they have some sort of pseudo plans in the work.
Mhm.
But they tease this whole high altitude thing, but when Peter encounters the Vulture for the first time, the Vulture flies him up super high,
Yeah.
and then Peter's parachute deploys. But it seemed like the plan Vulture had was to pull him as high up as he could, and either, I don't know, he wouldn't be able to breathe, or he would just drop the kid. I don't know what exactly he was doing, but he went up pretty high, and the whole
Yeah.
movie I was like, what does the high altitude suit do that this
Maybe
suit
to
couldn't do?
maintain that level of altitude. I mean,
Like I said, you could write a reason.
yeah, you
it
could.
had bigger
you could,
wings.
yeah. Because at that point, like you say, yeah, he literally was just carrying him to do a kill drop, and then he could quickly duck back down to safer altitudes. But
Especially since it seemed like the thing wasn't necessarily high altitude so much as it was the wings that could just like create their own little hermetically sealed
right,
room.
yep, yeah, maybe that was the actual seal then that he had to complete.
I don't really know what that has to do with high altitude.
That's what I was going to say, because, like, especially since we already see that tech in the middle of the movie, why does the altitude matter?
Right.
You'd think phasing through physical material is way more incredible than, like, well, it's at an altitude. It just can't handle the high altitude.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe it was just a ploy. Maybe everyone else was... That was just like the...
They just keep stringing you along.
That was
like,
the
they
code
have a
name,
bigger
yeah.
gig that they could pull, but they're choosing not to for some reason until they're forced to.
Maybe Tony was listening in, and he's like, they're making some high altitude thing. That's why we gotta camouflage our jet, because they're gonna be able to reach it at our high altitude. And then Tinker was like, they caught the bait. It's not even about the high altitude. We already could do that.
Before they have to pull off this big job, which is, of course, the real big scene of the movie. How many, times does Spider-Man really thwart Toombs and his crew that they lose supply, which means they can't fulfill jobs beyond a certain point? And Toombs is pissed beyond all reason. And then when finally he has to agree to do the high altitude job, he's just like, yeah, we'll do that job.
What do you mean?
Like, he's so pissed off that Bryce comes back all jazzed up from, the van scene, and he fucking vaporizes him for it. Like, he's super pissed off. He's like, don't shoot weapons out in the open, guys. And then Bryce is like, well, I'm gonna leave with all the secrets. And whether he was supposed to use the anti-grav gun or anything, like, what was the real intention? But I mean, vaporizing him worked in your favor.
They were flying under the radar. The thing is that when the ferry scene happens, they know that the
feds were
FBI
out.
and
Yeah,
Iron
so
Man
why not
are
go
on
big?
them.
That makes a point. Yep. Okay.
So yeah, it was at this point, like, we're not going to be able to carry on small
Yeah,
jobs.
it's not an
if we're going to do
overreaction,
one more,
so we got to do the last job.
the final score, as they call them. Anything else we need to? At the end, Tony tries to give him
I like when he rescues
super duper
Tomb
suit.
from the rubble.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
That's it.
and then May walks in on Peter wearing his suit.
And says a bad word.
No, she gets cut off. She could have said "what the frick." In my head canon, she says "what the frick."
But she doesn't say the R. It's not a hard R.
In my head canon, she says "what the fart."
What the fudge? Except I
Mhm.
didn't say fudge.
And then there's a mid-credits scene with
Tombs.
Mac Gargan talking to Toombs, and Toombs protects Peter's identity.
Because he's such a good guy.
Before I thought like he and Peter have an agreement, like he's a good guy, and I think in the end he has that little speech in the car, and he says like, "You saved my daughter's life, and I won't forget that." And I think it's just like paying it forward. You saved my life,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and so I owe you.
Yep.
Hopefully we see him again.
Matt Gargan?
I do too.
Both of them. It'd be nice to see. I love Scorpion. I love Scorpion's suit, and if they could find a good way to bring that into a movie.
You know, for all the other, I was thinking this when I was watching it, but a lot of the criticism that Raimi's Spider-Man 3 gets, I never saw Amazing Spider-Man 2, but I remember it getting the same thing. I think this does really well with multiple villains. And I think it's because it treats them all as just kind of like secondary antagonists.
Yeah, as far as multiple villains go, it's really one villain and then just henchmen.
But that's a good way to do it.
If anything, Shocker's the only name drop of another villain. Mm-hmm. Other than that, you have to know the names of the actual villains.
But even just like Shocker, I think felt like, I mean, he felt more than just another henchman. And it's probably because I know Spider-Man.
I was going to say, I disagree, because I think the only reason he feels more than another henchman is because I know who he is. But if he was just,
Hermie?
Well, his name is Herman Schultz.
But his friends call him Hermie.
His friends call him HJ.
H
for hand job.
His electrical...
Anyway, if
they don't call him the Shocker for nothing.
I mean, if they had just called him Herman and he had, the Shocker gauntlet on, then he would have just been Vulture's number 2.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, I mean, I agree. I think this is a good way to throw in more villains, but it also means like we talked about this. I don't remember in what movie discussion, but in one of these episodes, I had mentioned how the movies kind of have to pick and choose like who is not important enough to be seen again, or at least to be seen in their full capacity. So you get characters like Baron von Strucker, who just shows up at the beginning of Avengers 2 because no one really cares. Like, you can name drop that guy, and he's a guy that the comic people know, and they're happy to see comic character show up in the movie, but we don't have plans for him and we don't need him to do anything. And it's the same thing with like, you get certain characters will be name dropped, and 90% of the time that just means like it's fun to hear that character's name, but it also means you're probably never going to actually see them or see them do anything more. Mm-hmm. Or if they do, if they decide, if, let's say Shang-Chi showed up in Doctor Strange as just a character that he encountered while he was traveling in the East for whatever reason, it's Disney, so they could bring back that same actor. But I would also see them being like, we're going to make a Shang-Chi movie and we're going to just completely recast him and, whatever. Like, we can make a reference to the fact that he met Doctor Strange at some point and it doesn't matter. But 90% of the time, like, if a character gets mentioned, that usually means they're just like gone. So like with the Shocker, could the Shocker helm a movie?
No.
Probably not.
No.
But then again, if you had asked me, could the Vulture helm a movie,
yes,
I'd probably say no. But could the Shocker helm a movie? Probably not. So I don't need to see him again. But would it have been fun to see him in his stupid oven mitt costume? Which I believe there was a version with a mask. I thought I remember seeing in set pics that just never ended up appearing in the movie. But it'd be nice to see his costume, but we don't. And like, it's the same thing with like Scorpion. I would love to see Scorpion show up, but we probably won't. He's probably just Matt Gargan. He's got a Scorpion tattoo on his neck and he's in jail.
When Bryce was Shocker, he did have like a jacket that had like the yellow sleeves where they tried to do an homage to Shocker's suit.
But again, it's an homage, and like for me, it's nice to see the homage. Yeah. It's the same as a name drop. It's nice to hear the name drop, but it's more fun to see the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, bada bing, bada boom.
Should we do the 2 put-ups and a put-down? Or?
Pete, give me 2 put-ups and a put-down.
Put-up, I think this movie does a really good job at solidifying why high school Peter Parker is important to the journey of Spider-Man. Second, put up, I think Tom Holland just did a staple job of solidifying the identities really well. The other movies, you could say one actor did better at a Peter Parker and another actor did better at Spider-Man. I think Tom Holland nails both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Put down, this movie tried to rely too much that it needed Tony Stark to help keep people involved in this movie belongs in the MCU proper, rather than just letting Tom Holland bring Peter Parker into the fold of MCU on his own.
Seth, 2 put-ups and a put-down.
My first put-up is going to be the car scene with Michael Keaton and Tom Holland. I think that still holds up really well. I think it's really tense. I think it's way better than them punching each other on a CGI-filled stealth plane. My second put-up is going to be... This might be a little more cop-outy than I would like, but I'm going to put the beginning stuff with him doing Spider-Man stuff in Brooklyn. Just like the guy being like, hey, Spider-Man, do a flip. And then he does it. Like him just interacting with the city is a lot of fun to see. My put down is going to be the aft-mentioned stealth ship. It's too much for me. I can't. All the flashing lights, all the fling into the engine, and then there's fire everywhere, and Michael Keaton's constantly punching the stealth plates, and so they're constantly flickering, and ugh.
My first put up is also going to be the car scene. I think that entire segment from, like Pete said, from the moment Peter opens, from the moment Toombs opens the door and Peter realizes who he is, I think it is a little weird. I think Toombs has enough information to infer that Peter is Spider-Man, but he just kind of like jumps on that ship immediately.
I don't know. He doesn't.
I don't want to necessarily ruin.
I do.
Or jump on that point because he had, like you said, he has enough to infer it, but that car ride, Liz, she solidifies everything that he had inferred to basically give Toombs, okay, my suspicions are dead on.
See, I disagree. I think everything Liz says is what gives him something to infer. He doesn't infer anything until Liz says stuff. And then at that point, I think you could put those pieces together. I think you could make an educated guess, but enough to pull out a gun and threaten Peter in the car right before the dance, I think is a little much. I think he shows too much of his hand. He could have easily just driven off and be like, I sure hope that Peter kid doesn't show up. And he still could have had Shocker watch the school.
Yeah.
Without having to admit to a high schooler who may or may not actually be a superhero that he is a criminal.
We didn't talk about...
I'll give you that. He recognized his voice, but again, as you just stated, he may not have enough to fully...
Like I said, he has enough to assume and make a very educated guess, but I don't think it was wise of him to threaten Peter. I don't think like I said, since he sends Herman there anyway, he could have just had Herman watch and say, if this kid leaves... Kick his ass.
Fuck him up. Kick his ass, Seabass.
Especially because Peter doesn't necessarily know what's going on until he turns around and he's like, I'm leaving town. I'm going to go do crimes. And Peter's like, oh shit. Like, I knew you were leaving and it was probably going to be a crime related thing, but now I know for certain and I must leave this dance to fight you.
We didn't really talk about it, but when he's fighting Shocker without his web things and then Ned shows up and shoots his web, that was fun.
Yeah.
My second put up is the little scene with Aaron Davis. As much as I said it is easily cut from the movie.
It's nice.
Think it's fun.
It's done well.
I like Donald Glover. He does a weird thing where like his one eye is always like half closed.
He's always proud.
I think it's a fun little scene. Like I said, it gets that good line about how Peter stood up, which granted is in a different scene, but he kind of brings it back to remind you that it's there. My put down is all of the tech stuff, and I mean, we know it's Tony Stark, but specifically, like, I don't care for the tech suit. When I first saw this, I liked Karen. I thought it was fun because Peter is known for having a lot of thoughts in his head and talking to himself, and so it gave him a reason to talk to someone. But watching it this time, do you know who the voice is, by the way? Mm-hmm. Pete, do you know?
The voice of...
Karen? The voice of Spider-Man.
I do not know, actually. No.
I believe it's Anne Hathaway.
No.
Is it not?
It's Paul Bettany's wife.
That's cool.
Hold on.
No, I'm not going to hold on. I'm right. Stop looking it up.
I could have sworn it sounded like Anne Hathaway, and it... Nope, it's Jennifer Connelly. Is that Paul Bettany's wife?
I have at least shipped them.
Anne Hathaway. It is Paul Bettany's wife. Jennifer Connelly. Okay, so I was wrong. I thought it was Anne Hathaway. I think she does a fine job.
I'm not smart. I looked that up earlier. That was just a thing. When I was waiting for Kirsten to get home, I was reading trivia.
You don't have to... You have to take that away from yourself.
Yeah, it's... I don't care for it. I don't care for all the tech stuff, and I think Tony Stark makes this movie worse.
You think Tony Stark makes every movie worse?
He does. He sucks. He is the worst. In a very minor, not really put down, but side put down, I really, really, really like Flash Thompson. He doesn't really do much in this movie.
Penis Parker!
Which is fine.
How is but liking Flash Thompson a side put down?
Because I'm saying in this movie... that was not my put down. My put down is in this movie doesn't really do much. I really like Flash Thompson. He is my favorite Spider-Man
sounds like
character.
A put up.
They don't do much, but there's a lot of tension between Flash and Peter. They keep that tension there through the scenes that may be few, if it seems like it, but there are enough where you can tell.
There's not a lot of tension. He's just a dick. He's just as much.
I was
going to
say, I don't think,
but he creates tension for
there's no
Peter
tension. He's
with
just there and he's like,
else.
look at me.
Because he's
annoying.
constantly called out in front of all his other classmates. So it's like, does he react or he just takes it, so everybody else thinks, oh, you're just a nerd.
But it
and you're just
doesn't
gonna,
matter
like,
because
shut down.
all those people are extras who don't like nothing factors in. It's nothing where like other people call him Penis Parker in the hallways. It's just
Adrian
it's just
Toombs
Flash
isn't like, hey,
being
Penis
annoying.
Parker.
It's just Flash being there
Do you
and
know
being
his
annoying.
name? Yeah, it's Penis.
Whatever, Eugene.
That's not my name.
No, it's Flash's name.
No, it's Flash. They wouldn't call him. His friends call him Eugene.
Anyway, I don't know. I like Flash, but in this movie he's just kind of there. And that's fine. That's what he is in most of these movies. But it'd be nice to see him grow as a person like he does in the comics over the course of these movies, and I don't think that's going to happen.
I think it's because he's not really a thing.
Exactly, he's not. And that's where my put down comes in, is he's not a thing. And it's fine. He doesn't have anything to do in this movie, so you don't need to shoehorn him in. I'm just saying, as someone who likes Flash Thompson, I wish he had something to do.
I think this movie is good, but Spider-Man just works way better as long-form narrative.
That's what I always say. He should have a TV show. Stop fucking making movies.
Because one of the... I know you can't in a movie like this because it's a Spider-Man movie, but I wanted more high school drama. I wanted more John Hughes.
Well, I wanted more high school drama. I wanted more street crimes. I wanted more... Like, I've always said, Into the Spider-Verse is where you can keep going bigger with those movies. I always say the sequel should be a bunch of alternate universe Kraven the Hunters hunting down Spider-Man.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
But I feel like they're never going to do it, and now that we know that the next Spider-Man movie is probably a multiverse thing that has Doctor Strange and stuff in it. I always said the third Spider-Man movie, like, each one should go smaller, and I always said the third one should be back down to earth and do the Enforcers.
That'd be cool.
Something super small.
Bring back Scorpion.
Instead of going big, especially because this movie ends with him being like, I need to stop doing all the big suit, like, I gotta be the guy on the street. And the next movie goes, nope, globe-trotting.
The street in London.
And it's like, I don't know. I like this movie a lot, but there's a lot I don't.
Since we're on
like
the
about
subject, and I already know Andrew's side of things, and I don't know when else this would come up, and I don't even know if this is a thing, I'm going to say right now, if you want to cut this, you can.
Never do.
No, but if I say it at the beginning, then there's more chance that you will. Do you like the Raimi movies, Pete?
I like 1 and 2.
I know Andrew does not like the Raimi movies, and I like them, and I've been actually like thinking of rewatching them.
I'd like to give them another look and see.
I've been meaning to.
I don't care for them. I think they're too campy and kind of stupid, and I really don't like Tobey Maguire.
That campiness works for me, and I'm someone who I like Raimi's campiness and all his stuff.
And I have not seen them since high school.
And that's like, I like them, especially because they established like young adult Peter Parker. And again, I know I just kind of gushed over the performance with this on like a good high school Peter Parker. But I thought to bring Peter Parker into young adulthood, Sam Raimi's films did really well. Although I thought Tobey Maguire was a way better Spider-Man than a Peter Parker.
I don't think he's very good at either.
Got him.
Oh,
I think he's a better...
You take
he's
it with a grain of salt,
than...
but like if I had to compare him and Andrew Garfield was a better Peter Parker. Tobey Maguire was a better Spider-Man, but I think Tom Holland trumps them both on both parts entirely.
I remember seeing a lot of people say that they keep making Spider-Man younger, and that's true. But Spider-Man is always known as a young character. However, Spider-Man was only in high school for, I think, 2 years of the original run before he graduated and went to college. He's always been young, but he's always been college age. He was in college for a good chunk of like the 70s, 80s, and I think he was like in his early 20s in the 90s. But I think he works best in a high school setting. And but it is definitely more modern to put him in high school with, you know, Bendis' Ultimate Spider-Man and all that.
And that's where I have a soft spot for it with like the high school Peter Parker, because I thought Bendis did such a good job at portraying that.
But I think that's the best place to get a lot of the drama, and like you can get that in college and elsewhere as well. But I think you get a lot more drama. Emotions are higher. There's more social interactions and more difficulties to ditch your day-to-day life and go do superhero stuff when you're stuck in school 8 hours out of the day.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
That's okay. You got there. You got somewhere.
Any last thoughts
I thought you were
before?
going to say any last words.
Not to really
one?
extend conversation much longer than we are probably wanting more on Seth's side here.
I'm actually up. I'm never going to fall
Good.
asleep.
We didn't really have like a full on segment of talking about the car scene. We've kind of brought it up here and there. I just want to say like how good they do on the first major threat of not just towards Peter Parker, but the guaranteed threat of every one of his loved ones will also have consequence if he chooses to continue to thwart Toombs's actions or a villain's actions. Like, there might be some hearsay when he's fighting other people, like, oh, I'm going to kill you. But, like, that car scene when Toombs threatens him, yeah, he has the gun and everything, but the way Keaton's able to deliver that line, like, I will kill you, and then I will kill all of your loved ones. Like, he has no idea how many people that is, but the conviction behind the delivery of that line is so good, and I think that's like what kind of like solidifies in that sense in Tom Holland's face when he has to walk into the dance floor in the gymnasium and basically walk to Liz like, I can't do this, because he knows he has to go stop him. Is like, I realize everything that I have done up to now has a true consequence, and that is Aunt May will die.
I disagree with you there.
Oh.
I was not thinking of Aunt May at all during that scene. And I know he threatens his loved ones as a vague entity, but it just felt like a threat to Peter. Just, fuck you, kid. Don't come for me. I'll kill you.
That's
and I'll
true.
kill everyone you love, whatever. But it's not like, it didn't feel like Peter was reconciling with that. It's not like he stopped and thought, like, I gotta stay back because Aunt May could get hurt. It's just, he walks in, he's like, I gotta go stop this guy because he's gonna go do a crime, and that's bad.
That's true.
Especially because he shows up and he's just like, I know stealing things is wrong.
That's true.
It's like, yeah, I guess so. By the way, I forgot. Seth, where do you put this in your ranking of every Marvel movie ever?
Maybe because it's recent, but I put this at number 1. It could probably go after Guardians, but here we are.
So I also put mine at number 1. I was thinking the same, where it could probably go under Guardians, but I think overall, I grade these differently every week, but I really like it. I think it's a solid movie. I think it's one of the better put together movies we've watched, up there with Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And I think this is the easiest to rewatch. I could easily sit down and watch this movie again, as opposed to a lot of these other ones where I would have to be in a mood to watch any movie, but I would really have to be in a mood to.
And you mentioned a little about the
again.
length, and I think I might have felt a little bit during DC and the ferry, but for the most part, I don't think it feels super, super long or anything. And maybe in a different time, I would be fine with DC. I think when I first saw it, I was just like, hey, this is like a fun thing happening. But maybe now I was just kind of waiting for the Toombs stuff at the end. But yeah, I think it does a good job at just kind of being its own movie. I think it does a good job at keeping the pace up and has some fun set pieces, has some fun like street stuff. And
Pete, in your ranking of all the movies you've watched for the show.
No, all of the movies you've ever watched.
Yeah. It's in my top 3.
1.
At least, yeah, like top 3, top 5, like looking back.
Top 3, top 5, top 15.
It's really hard to kind of remember everything, but I know like Winter Soldier's in my top 3. This is in the top 3. So that's where it's like, however you really want to.
What's the last one in your top 3?
Ones, but I really don't. I'm looking at my movies right now, and
I'm just thinking you gave us 2 out of the 3.
I know.
And you can't come up with that last one.
I know. As Andrew said, just like the rewatchability, and especially this is the best origin one out of them all,
because
if
it's
you
not
even want to give this the quote unquote origin movie. It's up there for me.
Cool beans.
Thanks for hanging out with us. If you like this, tell a friend. If you didn't, then lie to a friend. Check us out on Twitter at SoHowAbout. You can find me on Twitter at SethKumpf. You can find Andrew on Twitter at TessuDownist. And subscribe to us on YouTube at SoHowAbout.
And join us next time when we do this once more with Interference.
Watcher.
Seth, now the mics are off. What movie are we watching next week?
We are going to watch... Pete's not going to, unless he wants to, but he won't be on the show. He'll have to talk to himself.
Womp womp.
And just so he doesn't know what movie we're watching, we're going to watch Thor Ragnarok, which is about the afterworld.
Cool.
Yeah, it is cool. How good are whisper jokes?
They're all right.
We used to love these. You've changed, Andrew. We used to love this joke, Andrew. I remember us whispering to each other all night.
Lying on our beds like the dream phone.
Do you lie on your bed when you're talking on the phone on your bed? Do you lie on your front with your leg, with your feet in the air, or do you lie on your back and like a starfish?
Those are the only 2 options.
Well, thank you for making me a part of this.
How do you do?
You're
Yep.
welcome.
No, always happy to have you, Pete. Always happy to have you. I can say that because we only need to have you
co-host
once.
of the show here.
Hey, you could have been 5th.
This is true.
If you and
As
you keep
stated
you
already
keep
at
that
the
up,
start here.
you keep that up, we'll make
You're going to be
diff.
nunth.
No.
We'll put
I
a
take it
Latu
back.
in here, and he'll fucking vaporize you. He'll interfere. Is that one of his powers? I think so. Can Watcher vaporize people?
I don't know if the Watchers have any powers other than just observing.
The power of
And-
eyesight. Yeah, I got that.